here's what we're going to do for our first lab or lesson plan. Basically, what I want you to do is build a room. Basically, I want you to build a basic room using standard primitives and your extended primitives. You can convert your objects to polys just to adjust them, and just use basic modifiers to your modifiers are going to be over here. Yeah, your free-form modifiers or parametric modifiers, you're going to be able to experiment with these over here. So I'm going to start you off on how I would build a room. And this lesson plan is just so you can get used to maneuvering around and within Max and using your viewports properly, and paying attention to your details, aligning geometry properly. So I'm going to start off with a box, and I'm going to go on my viewport here, my perspective viewport. I'm hitting Alt W to maximize that, and I'm just going to put me a simple room in here and raise it up. Doesn't matter the height. Alright, I'm going to hit my F4 so I have my edges, and I honestly, I usually prep my objects, so I'm just going to hit my M key here and just drag a standard shader on there. And I'm very, like I said, this is just my personal preference. As you can see, I got purple lines here. I'm going to click on this little swatch here, switch those to black lines. Alright, now what I'm going to do is go ahead and take this object, and I can right click it from here, or from here, and just convert it to editable polys. And let's go ahead and name this room. Just hit enter, and now that box is known as a room. And if you want to see your geometry in your scene, just you have your hierarchy, which is, I believe, is your H key. If you hit your H key, that brings it up, and then obviously these are your standard geometry, splines, and so forth. You can turn those on and off. Alright, what I'm going to go ahead and do is go to my sub-object level here. Notice I have my vertexes, which are those points, my edges, which are those edges. And by the way, I'm showing my edges by hitting F4. That's why I can see them. You got your borders, which are actually an opening. So I'm going to delete that poly, and that is a border. It's an opening. Alright, so I'm going to hit Control Z, go back. And your polys are actually your faces right here, which you can see it's a square, which actually takes two triangles to make a square. So a poly is technically two tris. And then your element itself is the whole object itself. So I'm going to go ahead and take my polys. I'm going to highlight all of them so you can see I'm walking around it. And I'm going to go to my tool set here, flip it. Now you notice I flipped the geometry inside out, but I still can't see through it. So I'm actually going to click on that object, right click, go to object properties, and I'm just going to turn on backface cull so I can see it, so I can see inside. As you can see, you're not seeing the back face of the geometry, but you're seeing the inside. Now, just to let you know, when you click on your polygons here, and you see ignore backfacing right there, if I click that, it's letting me know I'm ignoring that back face. If I don't have it checked and I try to click that wall, I'm actually clicking the back face wall. Now if I uncheck it or check it again, I'm clicking the walls and it's ignoring the back face. So just let you know, and you're gonna go in and out of those a lot. So I'm gonna go ahead and just for now, I'm gonna actually I'm gonna delete a couple walls. If I hit my delete key on the keyboard, and I'll probably delete my roof for now. And I'm basically just working with a section of the wall, as you can see it right here. I got these two walls and the floor. And that's all I really want you to have for your basic room. So now, just for now, I'm going to go hit my G key, which is turning off and on my grid. And I'm just going to start off making simple shapes. Like I want you to make a couch, maybe a love seat, a couch, TV, maybe a bookshelf, just using your standard geometry. So for example, I'm going to go ahead and take a box here. And maybe to be a little more creative with it, I'm going to go ahead and make it an extended primitive. And I'm going to use a chamfer box. Hit my auto grid. When you hit auto grid, you can actually auto grid against a wall or something. See how I can, like, build things off the wall. Or like if I took a regular standard box and I auto grid on the ground, whatever, you know, the other box I can auto grid right off it, or whatever basic shape. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and grab all these objects and just delete them out of my scene by holding control down and just clicking on my objects. There we go. Alright, so I'm going to start off with my first object. I'm just going to go to extended primitives and let's go with a chamfered box. And I'm going to go to my 4 viewports here. I'm going to go to the top. And I'm going to go ahead and, since I have an auto grid and I don't have a roof, it's going to go ahead and place it right on that floor. And I'm going to go ahead and build this right in the center. It doesn't matter. And I'm building a box. And you can see I kind of made it a chamfer box there. Alright. Now, let's just pretend that's my standard sofa base. Alright. Now I'm going to go ahead and I'll take another box, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and I'm going to go ahead and click on that box. I'm going to Z up on it so you can see. I'm going to right click on it, convert to editable poly, so which gives me the options now of my vertex points, my edges, you know, and so forth, polys. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and take this box, and I'm deselecting this by clicking on it. And I'm going to click that, and as you can see I have my gizmo here. If I hold down my shift key, I'm going to duplicate that up, and you can see I have a clone options. I'm just going to hit copy for now. Alright, and going back to my top viewport, I'm going to select vertexes, and I'm still on that object, so I'm going to highlight the verts. As you can see, I'm going to go ahead and looks like I got the back ones selected, so I guess it doesn't really matter. I'm going to go ahead and move these over to the side like that, and you can see my perspective window that it's adjusting there. So I'm going to actually move that over, deselect it. I'm going to click on that object again, and you know, I'm going to go ahead and hold down shift, and it's duplicating it over, and now I have 2 objects. I'm going to hit copy, and just to pay attention to details, notice this is a little bit longer. I'm going to move that slightly. Oops, that's the one under it. So I'm going to go ahead and just come down here, and I believe I'm going to select, say in the front viewport you can see it's a little longer. I'm going to select that one. And just, you know what, we're going to move this over just a tad bit. And now, you know, basically I have 2 couches. And if you really wanted to, you can actually take one of these objects and attach it to the other one. So now they're kind of one object, but at the same time, I'm still able to grab separate elements of them. So I'm going to go back to my vertex points here, and I'm just going to deselect. I'm going to grab all these and just kind of center them up so, you know, my couch is a little more centered. And I may grab these verts and just bring them down, something like that. Alright, the next thing I'm going to do is probably, you know, I can take that same bottom couch right here, and you know what, I'm going to go ahead and just shift drag it so I'm duplicating it. And you know what, I'm going to press OK. I'm going to take my scale tool. It's right over here. You have your 3 tools right here. You got your move, your rotate, and your scale. Notice I'm grabbing that box. I'm on that box, and if I, you know, I can grab the Z axis right there. You see it's a Z point. I'm going to actually scale that just a little bit down, and then I'm going to hit my rotate tool, and I'm going to actually rotate it. But to make it easier on me, if I see, I'm going to go to my left viewport. See where my pivot point is, so it rotates right there. I can actually go to this little hierarchy right here, which is I usually call it like the little spaceship. Click on it. You can adjust your pivot point by selecting that. Notice now my pivot point changes, like, you know, the cursor changes. So I'm going to take my move tool, and I can manually move that, and I'm grabbing it by the world space, so where it highlights yellow. That way I can maneuver it. Otherwise, if you just grab it by one of the access points, you can only go back and forth or up and down. But if I grab it from the world, I can kind of maneuver it around the world. And I'm actually going to pivot that somewhere right here. I'm going to turn that off. And now if I hit my rotate, it actually pivots on that point. So just for now, I'm going to go ahead and move that. And like I said, we're just using standard geometry. We're not building anything fancy. I'm going to go ahead and position that. And now notice my object's at an angle. So if I hit my scale tool and try to scale it, scales it weird. See? It kind of skews it up. You don't want that to happen. So that's in its local view access. So if I switch this down to this is in view, if I go to local, notice the gizmo changes towards its local access. So now I can scale it how I want, you know, on its access point. So I'm going to actually just and let alone I can actually move it on that access point. So I can actually just tuck that down somewhere like that. No biggie. And then I'll probably switch it back to my view and then, you know, just tuck it back in here. I'm going to like minimize that and, you know, basically just overlap the geometry. And like I said, this is not how you would normally build a couch, but like I said, it's all about just so you can learn how to move around. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and take one of these couches. Notice they're attached together because we attached them. I'm just going to go click on my object here. And I'm going to grab an element. So now I can still grab that separate element. And I can hold down shift and duplicate just that element. And when I clone it, I can say clone to object or clone to element. Now I don't want to clone it to the element. I'm just going to clone the object. And, you know, we can name it if we want. We can call it chair, armchair, or arm1. Doesn't matter. Press OK. I'll deselect here, and I'm going to grab that. And then notice our pivot's off. So how do you reset that pivot? Just click on the object, go back to our hierarchy, click it, activate pivot, and we can center it now to the object. And then turn it off. Now I can take my rotate tool. And see this tool right here? This is increments. So if I click that, it actually rotates in increments and it kind of snaps. So I can snap it to about 90. Right? And then I'm just going to kind of move that over here. Something like that. And you know, look at it's a little long on the bottom. So just to be a little more accurate, I'm Alt W'ing out. And I'm going to select those verts of that object, which is right here. I'm just highlighting through. Notice I'm highlighting through. And then I'm going to raise that up to even it out. Deselect it. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and just look at all my 4 viewports here, and you know, I can have that kind of go further back. I'm arc rotating in our perspective. I'm going to grab that object again, grab those verts, and I can just highlight them from here. I'm going to kind of move that back a little bit, something like that. You know, I can actually even grab just this bottom vert if I want, these bottom set of verts, and just move them in just like that. Just kind of match up the couch if I wanted to. And you know what? Let's go ahead and I'm just going to select that. From the top, I'm going to grab these verts and just bring them down a bit. And you know, and then I can just grab these verts and just kind of tuck them and match them. Now I can deselect that. But you know, when I deselect something, I'm just, you know, if I'm on a, you know, sub-object level, I just click it again and then click somewhere in the, you know, the viewport. I'm going to click that object again, hit my shift key, and I'm duplicating it right across. I'm looking at my front viewport, and I'm just kind of matching that up, and there we go. I'm going to copy it, Alt W, I'm in my perspective, I'm going to Alt W, and now I have somewhat of a basic couch. Now if you want, I can click on my room, right click it, hide selection, because I don't want to see it, and I can highlight all these now, those objects, go to group it all together and name it couch if I wanted to. I can do it that way. This can be couch, right? Or I can ungroup it, take this object, which is one poly, I can attach tool, and just attach these all back together. So it's one piece, but still separate elements. And that's usually a correct way of doing things, so you can like texture stuff. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and just name that couch from here. And there we go. We have one couch. It's all together. I'm going to right click, unhide everything, so I got my room back. You know, and now that you got something built, go ahead and rotate it where you want to position it. And I'm going to go ahead and reset the pivot point, so the pivot point's somewhere in the center. I'm going to go hierarchy, activate pivot, center. Turn it off, and now I can rotate it. Now when you model things, you don't want to rotate your stuff until it's completely done, and then you want to maneuver it around. Last thing you want to do is try to model an object. For example, if I put a box in here, standard primitives, if I put a box and I'm trying to model things and I actually rotate this already and then try to, you know, model within it, you basically screwed up its access point, and now it's going to be a nightmare trying to work with that. So try to not move your geometry. You always want to walk around it while you're modeling. So I'm going to delete that off. I'm going to click him now, and I'm just going to, you know, I'm going to rotate him, say 90 that way. I'm going to just push him off to the side here against that wall. You know, I can actually scale that as a whole now if I want it bigger. I'm going to go ahead and duplicate that down, and I'll have maybe like 2 couches. Alright, you know, maybe I want to build some kind of waiting room. I don't know, I'm just throwing some couches in here. You know, now of course if you want to go on and build a table and so forth, or maybe add some pictures on your wall, you know, just use basic standard shapes. You know, there goes a picture frame. I can sit here and like come back and, you know, whoops. I can click on that picture frame, shift it. There goes 2. Maybe make 2 copies of it. So I got 3 altogether. I'm gonna actually select that, hold down Control, and grab them all, and just kind of even them out over there. All right. So now, like basically, for this lesson plan, I want you to build at least, you know, 7 to 8 different objects, you know, couches, love seats, end tables, basic pictures, lamps, maybe a TV, a bookshelf with some books on it. You know, get a little detailed. You know, that's how I grade. I grade based off how much effort and detail you put into your scene. And when you're all done, I'm not a big fan of seeing all these different colors. That's just my personal preference. I know I'm a stickler about it. So what I want you to do is actually take everything in your scene by just taking your marquee tool here, you know, that's your move tool, and make sure this is at window crossing. Leave it where it's at. I'm just going to highlight everything, hit my M key, not that we're going to get into materials or anything, but then I want you to actually drag it on in there, hit assign to the selection so everything's gray. With it still being selected, I'm going to double click my black swatch so everything's in black lines. Now what I want you to do is eventually render this out with an ambient occlusion, because I want you to get used to that, and then just save it and post it up in the forums, which is www.digitalvamp.proboards.com. Alright, so when you render things out, you know, like I want you to frame stuff up. Now if you actually right click and hit show save frames, this is going to show you what you're actually rendering out. So we can actually zoom up on that for, you know, different angles, and we know we're not going to get any of that black void space. If you want bigger renders, you know, you can go to go render setup, and just for now you can go customize. You can have different render settings. If you want to go 800 by 600, or, you know, maybe a little more widescreen. So if I re-hit that again, so save frames and go back, I got kind of more of a wider screen, I believe. Alright, well anyways, let's go ahead and render out a scan line. This is your basic scan line, but I want to see your ambient occlusion pass. So this is your default lighting. Alright, so how we're going to do that is I'm going to go ahead and X this out. And we're going to switch to a different renderer. So I'm going to go to Renderer, Render Setup, and we're going to scroll up here, and we're going to go to Assign Renderer, switching it from Default Scanline to Mental Ray. We're going to press OK. And then what I'm going to do is hit my M key. Now you're probably, this is 2011, but I switched my mode back to compact material. You might be seeing something like this. And like I said, I'm pretty old school, so I'm going to switch my mode to compact. I'm going to take any blank shader here. We're not going to use this one because I dragged all those gray shaders right onto that. So I'm going to click any one of these. Like I said, in your options here, you have, you can cycle through more sets, but we won't get into that. That's another class, so I'm going to go ahead and keep it standard here. I'm going to click that shader. You can see where it says standard here. I'm going to click that. And this is going to pop up. We got to look for the Mental Ray material shader. So if it helps, you probably can type in Mental, there it is, Mental Ray. You can double click that, and this will disappear now. You're going to see a surface slot here. You're going to click that, and now you're going to look for the ambient occlusion pass. And it's right here, ambient reflective occlusion. The only way you can get that is to go through Mental Ray, your Mental Ray renderer. So I'm going to double click that. My sample rate, I'm probably going to increase that to 64. The higher, the more detailed, your soft shadows are going to be, or your global illumination. So you got to remember, 16 times 2 is 32, 32 times 2 is 64, and then onwards to 128. The bigger the number, as you multiply it by 2, the more detailed the render. But of course, it's going to take longer to render. I'm just going to keep it at 64. Now, your max distance here, I noticed on 2011 they have it set to 0.4, so that could blow out your ambient occlusion. So just to help it out, let's go ahead and type in 0.0 and hit enter. That's what you wanted at. Now, with this renderer setup still open, and if you accidentally close it out, just go to Renderer, Render Setup, or it's your hotkeys F10. We are now going to go to our Processing tab. We're going to check Material Override. What we're going to do, before we drag that onto here, we got to go to the parent level. See how it says parent level? I'm going to click that. And we're going to name this either ambient or dirt map. So I'm just going to call it dirt and hit enter. Now I'm going to take that from the parent level. I'm going to click drag it right onto the none slot. Remember, this has to be checked in order for it to drag on there. Once you do this, this window is going to pop up. It's going to say instance. Press OK. Now we know our dirt map's in there. We're going to go back to our renderer tab. And we're going to set these pixels here. I'm going to go to 1 and then maximum 64 because I believe I switched it to 64. And now your filter type, this is optional. I've just always been taught to use Mitchell. I believe these maybe give you different slightly looks in your renders. I'm not an awesome expert at that, but I really didn't see too much of a difference. But like I said, I just kind of stick to what I've been accustomed to. So I'm going to hit Mitchell. Now when I render this out, all you got to do is hit render, and now you will see your soft shadow ambient occlusion pass. Now these are the renders I want you to post up on the forums. Alright, and that's just how we can catch any errors or our soft shadows. Is, so basically a really good look to showcase your models. Now once you got it rendered, hit that little save image, and just find some kind of spot on your desktop and save it out as a simple JPEG. Name it, save it as a JPEG, because we are just posting this up in the forums. And call it Lab 1 or whatever. Lab 01. You can call it room or whatever. Now what I would like for you to do actually is to give me different renders different angles. Maybe zoom up on certain parts of your room and give me new renders. I like to see the details. There we go. I'm gonna go ahead and close that out. Now if you want to go back to your regular render, all you got to do, so you want to see your regular default render, I'm going to go ahead and go to my processing tab, and all you got to do is uncheck material override and then hit render, and now you're going back to not your scanline, but your regular default mental ray, which is like scanline. Actually, mental ray is a more powerful renderer, so it's something you might want to get used to. I tend to go back and forth with my different renderers and stuff, so alright, but like I said, this is just one room. But I do want you to explore with your I do want you to explore with I'm gonna turn off my show save frames here. I do want you to explore wow, I'm scaling out. If this happens to you like that, just click on an object and Z up on it so it kind of resets. I want you to use modifiers, so explore with your modifiers. For example, I might do a little table here. Let me just grab like a cylinder, simple cylinder. I'm gonna hit auto grid, and I'm just gonna crease that up, and then you notice I got these little, I got more heights and segments I can work with. Alright, I'm just increase that, and I'm gonna just work on that. So I'm gonna click on that, right click, hide unselected, Z up on it. So I'm just working, that's like a table leg. And I'm just going to go ahead and throw a modifier, which is, like a taper modifier. If you notice I have these options here, I can kind of skew it in, maybe curve it in, curve it out. Something simple like that, because I want you to play around with your modifiers. Remember, your modifiers all have gizmos, and you can actually manipulate those gizmos. That could be like the table base or a table leg, and we'll go with the table leg. And then feel free to, you can collapse it or just leave it the way it is if you want to leave your modifiers on there just for now. And remember, all your modifiers are over here too. You got your parametric deformers, so they're all here. Explore with those and have some fun with them. But I'm going to go ahead and finish up this little table. So I'm going to go ahead and hit shift. Oops. Let me cancel that. Let me get out of my modifier there. Alright, I'm just going to hit my table here. Leg, I'm going to shift that. I got something like that. I'm going to press OK. Then I can actually grab both of these by holding control. Shift them again across. Just like that. And then, you know what? I can actually build just a little tabletop. I'm going to use a extended primitive here. And use my chamfer box. And I'm just going to lay it from the top viewport. Something like that. Click, drag, and then I'm going to round it off a bit. And if I zoom up on there, you can see what I just did. And I'm going to go ahead and move that up so it just sits right on top. And I like to, like I said, I'm all about detail. So make sure your geometry is not really like overlapping. Just going to nicely set it on top. And there we go. We got a simple table. If I wanted to, I can actually grab that and maybe, adjust it by getting my scale and scaling it a little more down from the top. If my table looks like it's too high, if you're set, if you feel like it's good the way it looks, I can click that, convert that to a poly. And, I can attach these now. Go to my, with this table selected, I can go to my attach tool. And I'm just going to attach that one, and that one. So they're all one piece again. Right? And then I'm going to go ahead and, you know what? I'm going to actually grab all these just like that. And you know what? I feel like my table's a little too tall, so I'm going to scale it down all at once. And then kind of, I'm going to hide, I'm going to deselect, unhide everything. So I can see that, I don't want my table floating in the air. And I'm just going to click that and place it towards the bottom. And if I feel like my table is a little, uneven on top, remember you got your elements. I can grab just that element. I'm going to go ahead and click here and just kind of slightly move it over to even it out. There we go. I'm going to maximize that, Alt W, and then I feel like I'm done with my little table here, so I'm going to rotate that 90 degrees that way. And you know what? I'm going to go ahead and scoot that over here, and let's go ahead and hit Shift. Duplicate another one, maybe twice. And I'm going to go Alt W again just to see if things are even. I'm looking at my top viewport and it looks pretty good. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and, I like things to be all gray. I'm going to hit M. And I'm going to select everything in my scene and just grab that shader, drag it right onto it, hit assign. Close that out. And like I said, I like all black lines, so I'm going to grab everything again, hit my swatch. Black. There we go. And then let's go ahead and do one more ambient pass, which my ambient's already set up. So all I got to do is go to Render, Render Setup, turn on my Material Override, because I turned it off earlier, and then just hit Render again. There we go. And then, obviously it looks like my tables, they look pretty good. They might be set a little high, but, that's why we do these type of renders. Alright, and then obviously save it out as your lab. And give me, like I said, 3 or 4 renders. And I want you to have some fun with this lab. And next week we'll get into some more detail. We'll break down how to really, convert your geometry and really manipulate it. All right, until next time, I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.